There being a quorum present, I call this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. Attention salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pom. Pelosi, Joe DiGirolamo, Rich Patterson.
Here. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of the June 26, 2014 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the resolutions and decisions, number 27, 2014, Mainline General Contracting and Restoration, Inc., number 28, 2014, Luxuria Homes, LLC, number 29, 2014, 102 South Vendome Avenue, LLC, number 30, 2014, Joanne S. Chertok Trust, number 31, 2014, Irwin Rachel, number 32, 2014, Brian Miranda. Your motion?
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. First case is James and Margaret Montemuro, 118 North Washington Avenue, Block 327, Lot 416, in the C1 S25 district, to grant a C variance for lot width, combined side yards, building coverage, possibly distance between principal structures, and staircase from ground to second floor deck. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. Yes, I do. The subject property is a two-story single-family home to be demolished and replaced with a new flood-level single-family home per the plans of Peter Weiss Architect. The parcel of land is 31 feet by 125 feet, 3,875 square feet in all. The proposed single-family house is 2 stories above a ground level containing a garage, storage, and access. There are 4 bedrooms, small porches in front at both levels over Washington Avenue, and larger rear yard porches in back at both levels. There is a spiral staircase in the rear from the ground to both deck levels. The house tops off within ordinance limitation at 27 feet 10 inches above elevation 11. The actual first floor is higher than the minimum to allow for the parking underneath. Variances required are lot width 40 feet minimum required versus 31 feet being the existing landlocked lot. Combined side setbacks 11.47 feet required versus 10 feet both sides combined. Building coverage 35.56% permitted, and it is 37% as set forth by the architect's calculation. Staircase from the ground to the second floor not permitted. Distance between proposed structure and principal structure on adjacent lot, 10 feet required, the rear right corner being 7 feet from a principal structure in the rear of the adjacent lot. Also, the rear decks are 6 feet 3 inches from the neighbor's property. Rear setback required is 20% of lot depth, or 25 feet. Proposed is 22 feet 2 inches from the decks to the rear property line. Comments. As to the lot width, of course, there is little or nothing the applicant can do to widen it. The board can, however, consider overall building mass and relationship to neighboring properties of the proposed building. Basically, is it a good fit within the streetscape? 2, combined side setbacks relate to the question of total open area provided by the proposal. Compensating factors are larger than average side yards on the property to the right, they have 8+ feet, and the property to the left, they have 7 feet 8 inches. There are architectural open areas on the proposed building, including decks and a second floor left front niche, reducing the roof line at that point. Site visits will otherwise inform the board members as to this question. The building being demolished has a right side setback of 2 feet and a left of 5.89 feet, or 7.89 feet combined, so you might say the proposed is an improvement. However, the existing building is less deep and lower building coverage than the proposed. Building coverage. The overage is a footprint of 55.8 square feet, and the applicant should testify as to why this should not perhaps be pared down to accommodate the ordinance integrity. The staircase from the ground floor variance relates to aesthetics, the possibility of the decks becoming too easily used for noisy gatherings, etc., and the concern, especially in this neighborhood, of possible illegal conversions or sublets. Note there are bedrooms on both floors. Alternatively, the staircase may be seen as emergency fire exit and access for the residents, and this most certainly may be a valid rationale if no other possibility exists. 5, it should be noted that there are 4 parking spaces proposed off-street compared to none for the house being demolished. 1 space is lost on the street, but that is a pretty good trade-off. Landscaping exceeds requirements. Note that the front of the house and the porch are both several feet back from what is required. The board may want to consider the possibility that 3 of the 6 variances could be eliminated by slight redesign that might not significantly impact the size or quality of the proposed building. This might be accomplished by shifting the building a few feet forward and indenting the garage doors, paring off 3 feet of the house's length, and jogging in the rear porch on the right side. These actions could eliminate the building coverage, rear setback, and distance between variances. This is just a suggested line of discussion and not a recommendation as such. Finally, this case may lend itself to 2 votes, being one for the staircase and the other for all the other variances. And finally, the aesthetic upgrade and flood-resistant building is important for the street and the city. Sir? Jim?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Obviously, it's working now. Again, my name is James Swift, 1335 Tilton Road, Northfield, New Jersey, appearing tonight on behalf of James and Margaret Montemuro. Mr. and Mrs. Montemuro are here in the first row with us. Also, our architect, Peter Weiss, who prepared the plans, is here with us as well. I'd like to start off by saying that we did have a chance to review Mr. Rubin's planning review memorandum. We took it seriously, and we followed his recommendations. In essence, when this application was initially submitted, we were seeking 6 variances. We followed Mr. Rubin's recommendations. We pared down the building. We took 3 feet off of the back. In essence, we took the building and moved it forward, and I'll have Mr. Weiss testify about the specifics of that. In essence, we've eliminated 3 of the variances. The bottom line is that the rear of the property is, I'm going to have Mr. Weiss testify about that, but where was I? Oh, also, too, I would ask the board to take into consideration that part of this application is going to have 4 off-street parking spaces. The way the property is presently configured, there is 0 off-street parking on this property. Right now, Mr. and Mrs. Montemuro are forced to park in the street. Mr. Montemuro has a car, Mrs. Montemuro has a car, their daughter and son-in-law have a car. So if this board was to grant this application, in essence, all 4 of those cars will be taken off the street and will be placed in off-street parking. Presently, the property, in essence, has 1 parking spot in front of it. Obviously, we would lose that by making the 4 off-street spaces, but I would submit that Mr. Rubin's recommendations are good, that 3 off-street parking versus 1 on-street is a pretty good trade-off. This house was significantly affected by the flood, so accordingly, Mr. Weiss took into consideration the fact that this is a relatively low-lying area in Washington Avenue. He's raised the building up. In essence, all of the living spaces on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. There is a kitchen on the 2nd floor. There's a living room on the 3rd floor. I did read Mr. Rubin's concerns about a sublet, or the fact that, in this area, traditionally, there have been illegal duplexes. If the board wants to take testimony from Mr. and Mrs. Montemuro, I can assure you these folks have no desire. This is not an illegal duplex. This is for their own personal use. This property was built in 1927. The storm, as I said, gave it some damage. It's in need of upgrades. So instead of spending the time, the money on an old building and basically, putting perfume on an older building, they want to make it new. As Mr. Rubin pointed out, it's a 31-foot wide lot. By necessity, that's going to require us to ask for a few variances. What I would like to point out is, though we are seeking a relatively minor combined side yard setback, we do meet the minimum side yard setbacks on each side by 5 feet. In addition, we cut 3 feet off the front of the building, so in essence, the driveway to the right, which provides ingress and egress to the neighbor, is going to be about 3 foot wider, so in case of an ambulance or police fire, it's going to be a little bit easier to get back there. In addition, I would submit to the board to take into consideration the fact that the Montemuros, and with Mr. Weiss obviously, designed this property with the steps on the inside as to be as least obtrusive to their neighbors as possible. Obviously, having the steps on the inside is going to cut into their living space on the inside, but they wanted to be concerned about the impact it would have on the neighbors. In addition, this is a Mediterranean-style, beautifully well-designed proposed property. It's consistent with the property on the left, which is also a Mediterranean-style building. I would submit to the board that it's consistent with the design in the neighborhood. It will be nothing short of an outstanding upgrade. And again, if the board wants to take some testimony from the applicants about the back spiral staircase, Mr. Montemuro has been in the construction business for 45 years plus. He's indicated to me that the reason he wants the staircase in the back is candidly for safety. It's a long building. If he has a staircase in the back, it would let him get out the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, and so forth. So his primary concern for that is the safety. Again, I would ask the board to take into consideration that we went back to the drawing board. We took your land use administrator's recommendations very seriously. We did pare down the building. We did move the building. I think Mr. Weiss has done a fantastic job, given the fact it's a 31-foot wide lot. And again, at this point, I would ask Mr. Weiss to explain the technical details of this particular project. And again, the Montemuros are here if any of the board members want to take about the staircase or any other aspect of this project. So, sorry for running on. Mr. Weiss, if you would. Oh.
Peter Weiss.
Can you explain to the board the variances which we initially saw, and in essence the difference in the application that we're seeking now in terms of what you did after you got Mr. Rubin's recommendations?
I spoke with Roger a week or two ago about this project, and he made the suggestion that, maybe with some minor modifications to the building, we could eliminate half the variances. So what we did is, and this is the new site plan here, I took 3 foot off the rear of the building and they slid it forward 10 inches. And I have a couple here I'm going to pass around if you want to look at it. So between those two things, it brought the building coverage down to 35.5%, which is what's permitted. It increased the rear setback to 27 feet, which is 2 foot more than what's required. And it also puts us slightly in excess of 10 feet from the neighbor's property, which is in the rear. There's 2 buildings on the neighboring lot. One's in the rear, one's in the front. So we are now slightly more than 10 feet away from this 2-story building in the rear.
So, Peter, would it be fair to say building coverage, which was initially sought, that particular variance, at this,
Yes,
so there's no building coverage variance being sought, is that true?
correct.
And the distance between the proposed building and the...
Yes,
And in terms of the rear yard setback, that variance has also been eliminated, is that correct?
yes.
So could you explain, let's say from a safety point of view,
Well, let me go into the design a little bit here. The way the properties, or the building's designed, the ground floor is all essentially garage and storage and entry. So the first floor is 2 bedrooms and the kitchen dining area. And this is a little unusual because the second floor then has the living space. So the living area is kind of split between 2 levels. Then on the upper floor, there's also 2 more bedrooms. So from a convenience standpoint, we wanted to be able to connect the 3 decks because there's living space on the upper 2 floors. But Mr. Montemuro also had, or the Montemuros also had a concern about their kids and their grandchildren and all those family members. So they wanted to be able to have an extra set of stairs going down the rear in case there was ever an emergency.
okay, and
Correct.
and we do in fact meet the minimum side yard.
Well, it's the other way around.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you explain to the board your that?
Well, it's a narrow lot, so, that by definition kind of limits what we can do with the building. My thinking was if we could meet the minimum setbacks, that gives us kind of just enough space to develop a reasonable-sized building. I mean, it gets difficult when you get down to the buildings that are 20 foot wide, 21 foot wide. They just get to be problematic as far as just coming up with a functional building. So I felt it important to maintain the side yards where we could, the minimum. Then, as Roger pointed out, the side yards setbacks of the adjacent buildings is a little wider than the minimum, so we still have a reasonable amount of space between the buildings.
I don't have any more.
Shed on the back of the property. Is that going to stay or go?
No, that's scheduled to be eliminated altogether. I have Mr. Montemuro in the front row. If the board members have any questions concerning some of the issues that Mr. Rubin raised in his memorandum, they're here to answer those questions.
Yes, would you swear him in?
Very briefly. Why do you want this matter?
James J. Montemuro.
Margaret Montemuro.
Very critical.
I would just like to hear it from you about the spiral staircase and what your reasons are, briefly.
Well, during the winter, there was a fire where 2 people passed on the 3rd floor living space, and also a few years ago when they were building the homes across the street. There are 3 condos. The 2 condos on each one, there were 2 of them built. In the back of it, there is no way to get out except, what do they call them, Joseph ladders?
Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's ladders. And my concern is I plan to live in this house, and as I get older, I can't imagine myself taking a Jacob's ladder. And then the third floor, we have the family room there. And again, that was into question because there's 2 bedrooms up there, and it would be fine in the front, but in the back, would there be a problem? So that was the whole reason on that. And then just recently, over in Egg Harbor Township, as you come over the Kennedy Bridge, I don't know if anybody noticed it. You noticed the fire?
The Millridge
towards
sighting?
The other house, yeah, which really doesn't have anything to do with that. But both of my neighbors have vinyl siding, and we don't plan to, you know, but that was another thing so that was my reasoning, reasoning. My husband's was the same.
It's basically, you know, throughout my career in construction, we've been inundated with safety to the point where sometimes it sort of hampers your productivity. Safety is kind of brainwashed into me at the moment. Grandchildren on the way, a lovely wife, myself. I'd like to be able to have an alternate way out in the event of some sort of emergency. It don't necessarily have to just be a fire.
Could you use a Jacob's ladder?
Could I use it? I don't know.
Does the board have any questions of them?
I have one question. Since you're a builder and you're so concerned about safety, have you thought about putting a sprinkler system in this?
Yes.
You are putting it in?
I'm putting a sprinkler system in on the ground floor, on the garage area.
Not the whole house?
No, not the whole house.
Because you could do the whole house for the cost of the stairs in the back, just about.
No. No, the stairs, the cost of the stairs are well justified as far as I feel, the effect they would have as far as the safety.
I got one question. Peter, how hard would it be to enclose this so it's not even a variance? You did a great job designing. I have no problem with that. If we enclose the stairs somehow, then it doesn't become a variance.
We obviously
And you still have the safety out of it.
contemplated.
And you don't have the snow on the steps, you don't have,
Kind of look like a silo, I think.
I'm thinking, he's good at this. I'm a carpenter, he's a builder. That's your job. You need to do that, snug it back to the building and do your fancy stuff. That way you don't have a variance, and that way we're not setting, I like the design, but it's,
The thing is, we could have the stair from ground to the first floor or from the first floor to the second floor. It's just linking all three that kind of
Yeah.
raises the issue.
Yeah.
Not the staircase.
Mike, it may still be a variance.
Pardon?
It may still be a variance if you do that.
If it's up against the building, all the setbacks and everything will meet it, and it's not an open stairs? Would that be
It's an
allowed?
outside, it may still be,
Outside,
yeah, that might not
outside
work.
still? Is it outside the building even, just so you,
It's going to be against the building and enclosed.
I guess, yeah, not even mention. I mean, if I was to do it that way, I'd
And I don't want to ruin your, I'd like the exit.
My interpretation would be, it's not a variance if you enclose it from the ground to the first floor, and then left it open from the first floor to the second floor. I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah.
Peter, what size diameter is the staircase?
It's by law. It's by law, 12 inches.
5 foot? 5 foot diameter?
They're typically 5 foot. I mean, that's basically the minimum by
2.5 foot,
code.
2.5 foot tread.
Well, by the time you take out the railing and the pole in the middle, it's a little bit smaller, but yeah.
But you're looking at a 5 foot.
Yeah, typically.
Any other questions?
Mike?
That doesn't have to be a code compliant stair because it's not a required means of egress.
Right.
Doesn't have to be what enclosed.
Doesn't have to be.
Do you have anything else, Jim? Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any other discussion from the board? I don't want to take two votes.
Yeah.
No. What? Don't want to take two votes. Would you read the motion? Not two votes.
Yeah.
No.
Mr. Swift, I just want to verify the variances for lot width, combined setback, and to permit the outside stairs. Is that correct? The building coverage, the distance between structures, and the rear yard setback, they're all eliminated, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Consistent with the new plans, yes. So
Yeah. Also, I guess a condition is that the shed's going to be removed, or?
this will stipulate.
Right, okay.
There's only 3 variances.
Although it's not on the plans, it exists right now, correct?
Yeah, that doesn't have to be a condition, because the general rule is when the principal building goes down, all accessory structures have to
Okay.
go down during the demolition. The condition would be 8 sets of revised plans, full scale, reflecting that revised site plan that you submitted today,
Okay,
which is actually an amendment to the application.
okay.
According to the board, we would stipulate that as a condition of any approvals, that the shed in the rear of the property is going to be removed.
Yeah, I don't think that that's necessary. All right, so it's going to be, it's a motion, the affirmative for C variances for lot width, proposed is 31 feet, required is 40 feet. Combined side setback, proposed is 10 feet, requires 11.47 feet, and to permit outside staircase from the ground to the second floor when it's not permitted under the code.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion. Tom Collins?
I think it's admirable that Montemoros have relieved us of voting on a lot of these variances, which really we shouldn't have had to do anyway. Still not happy with the outside staircase. I think that there is definitely a better way that you can put fire egress in there, and I'm a big fire person, as you guys know. So I vote no. I think it should be reworked where the spiral staircase isn't in the back. I like what Mike said.
My primary concern was the overage and coverage, but that's been addressed. The only other thing is the rear stairway. I have mixed emotions about that. However, considering the linear configuration of the house, I am concerned about egress. So I think I have to go along with the rear stair. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
The lot width, I think the side yard combined side setbacks is, I wouldn't say de minimis, but it's not that big of a deal. And I think that the case made for secondary egress for the spiral stairs was a good one, so I'm going to vote yes.
Margaret Hoover Dalty?
I thank you for paring down the building. I thought that was admirable to get rid of the 3 variances that they were asking for. There's obviously nothing we could do about the width of the lot. The combined side setback is okay. There's no complaints from neighbors. And the staircase, I think if you enclosed it, would look worse than what it is. I understand the safety factor, so I vote yes, in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
I have grandchildren, so I wouldn't put this building up without a staircase, with it enclosed or without. I totally agree with that. I don't know where to go with this, because now we're setting another precedent that we've been doing lately on granting everything, that people are going to be coming in for third floor stairwells up to them. I got to vote no. I just feel bad that we're going that direction. I vote no.
Craig Colasano?
I'm a retired firefighter in Atlantic City, and the egress is important to me, not only for the homeowners, but for firefighters entering the building, and I'm okay with it. I vote yes for it.
David Carter.
Mike, we appreciate very much the change with the three variances, and I go along with the safety factor as far as the spiral staircase. Be nice if we could come up with a design maybe to cover the first floor part of the staircase, but I vote yes.
Jessica Hess.
As to the three variances being requested, I would echo the concerns Mr. Leslie stated. Coming into this, prior to hearing the testimony, my primary concern was the overage and the coverage. I'm happy that that was addressed. I think that given those changes, it certainly flows with the homes in the nearby neighborhood. I think it echoes those, and I believe it would fit nicely into the neighborhood, so I don't see any problem with that. As to the request for the staircase from the ground to the second floor, what separates this case from me is the testimony from the homeowners and my belief that they do plan to use this home for a considerable time. That's not a home that they intend to rent out or use for the possible legal conversions of the sublets. That primary difference and that factual difference makes me vote yes as to that proposal. Thank you.
Rich Patterson.
Two things. One, on the coverage issue, this board seems to have been inundated with applications for undersized lots and oversized houses, and I think the board may be reaching its limit of patience, and I do commend you for scaling back the house to fit on the lot that's there. Number two, in talking with Mr. Rubin and my own knowledge of the history of Margate and why the staircase issue was put into effect in the master plan was, as Roger stated, conversion of old houses into separate units and whatever. That we had a overlay district that really turned a Section 8 section of the town into a beautiful section, and we don't have that overlay district anymore because you don't need to have it, because people aren't doing that. I think that issue probably will be addressed in the new master plan, the rear staircase. So again, I commend you for what you've done to eliminate the variances, and I feel for, as Mr. Palmisano stated, it's a fire safety issue. I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes 7-2.
Thank you very much, and sorry for taking up so much time. Thank you.
Next case is Landmark Development Number 4, 8903 Monmouth Avenue, Block 420, Lot 10.01 in the S25 District for a C variance for front setback and possibly others, subject to zoning analysis by the zoning officer prior to the meeting. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. Yes, I do. The subject property is a recently created lot by virtue of a by right subdivision recorded May 28, 2014. The lot is a corner parcel with 40 feet of Monmouth Avenue frontage and 74 feet along Thurlow for a total of 2,960 square feet in all. It is proposed herein to construct a single-family home on the lot per the submitted plan by Peter Weiss Architect. The proposed house is 2.5 stories high with 5 bedrooms and 3 parking spaces. It has a freestanding garage on a driveway off of Thurlow Avenue, a permeable paver patio at grade between the house and the garage, a large front porch along the entire Thurlow Avenue frontage, and air conditioner units on the top floor roof on a platform. It basically meets zoning requirements except as set forth below. The variances required are the front setback for the porch on Thurlow, 11.4 feet required by the 200-foot survey compared to 8.0 as designed. Front setback for the house on Thurlow, 20 feet required versus 12 feet 10 inches as designed. Comments. The house has a relatively small footprint at 33% building coverage compared to 40% permitted. This comes to 207 square feet of footprint less than the maximum allowed, and multiplying by 2.5 stories, it's a much less massive structure than might be designed. Second, the board may consider the inherent hardship of the land configuration. Because this corner lot has only 40 feet measured back from Thurlow Avenue, it is different from every other lot on the block stretching up toward Amherst Avenue. All the other lots have double the depth, or 80 feet. This makes it difficult to design a house which would have the very narrow depth of about 15 feet based on a front setback of 20 and a rear of 5. Would such actually that should read 8, I think. Would such a house be in character with the neighborhood, and would it be aesthetically acceptable to the board? Note also that there is a larger setback for the Thurlow front wall, where the first 14 feet of the porch at the corner is larger and the wall itself is 15 feet back rather than 12 feet 10 inches. This is a softening of the impact at the important corner location. Having said all the above, site visits will indicate whether the benefits outweigh detriments in terms of impacts, if any, on neighbors regarding view, light and air obstruction, building mass, or aesthetics. The front setback on Monmouth is not a variance. As the initial action in this matter, the subdivision application done for the express purpose of building 2 houses was made on March 11, 2014, which precedes the interim interpretation of June 19, 2014, and of course precedes the ordinance revision which was passed on July 17th regarding the calculation of front setbacks when there are fewer than 3 comparables within 200 feet. Thus, the default of 5 feet applies, and the proposal herein is 5 feet 6 inches. These dates relate to the state law on 40:55D 10.5, known as the time of application law, which protects applications in process from more restrictive zoning changes made after application submittals. Finally, note the landscape areas in front of the proposed house on both streets greatly exceed the 60% required.
One second. Roger, do you know offhand if it met the new rules, what the setback would be, just for my...
I haven't calculated it, but I don't think it would have met the new rules. I'll run a calculation while we're discussing. Okay.
Good evening. Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant, Landmark Development Number 4, LLC. With me this evening, Peter Weiss, architect. He's already been sworn and presented the first application, so unless the board has any further qualifications they need from Mr. Weiss, I can begin by walking through exactly what the applicant proposes and how this application fits within the Margate Building Code, how it doesn't, and the need for the variances.
Do you want to?
Peter Weiss?
Weiss, why don't you walk us through the application as prepared and the use of variances and front setbacks on Thurlow?
This property is in the corner of Thurlow and Monmouth. 40 foot of frontage on Monmouth, 74 foot on Thurlow. I guess the issue we ran into with this lot was essentially the width of the lot and the front setback. All the lots going up the block are turned 90 degrees, so they're all 80 foot deep. So they all have a fairly deep, they're varying setbacks, but they're certainly deeper than what we're proposing. So we're trying to work with a compromise between what's required and what would give us a decent, livable, sellable house. And to that extent, we were proposing 5 feet in the rear, or 5.2 feet in the rear. Well, this is actually a side, but we'll call it a rear because it's opposite. And about 12.8 in the front. That gives us a building that is 22 feet wide. Now, in a typical 40-foot lot, you'd have 5 and 10 foot setbacks, so you'd end up with a 25-foot building. So I'd say 25 foot is the norm in Margate. But because of the orientation of the lot and all the other setbacks in the street, we're working with 22 feet. So I thought that was a reasonable compromise. So the way the building's laid out, We're ending basically in the middle of the building on Thurlow Avenue. We have all the living space on the ground floor. Second floor, we have 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, and on the third floor, 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. As Roger mentioned, the overall coverage in the lot is relatively small. It's much smaller than we could build, partly because we wanted to have a detached garage and we wanted to have some outdoor space, patio space. So what I'd like to point out, a couple things, besides just the orientation of the lot and all that kind of stuff. If you look at the next 3 lots going up the block, the front setback, you can look at my setback little schedule here. The porches on the next 3 houses up the block, the setback is 8.1 feet. We're proposing 8 feet. So to that extent, I think we're consistent with the next 3 lots. Where the larger setback comes in is the next couple lots that are halfway up the block, which have greater setbacks. And that also applies to the houses. The front setback of the houses on the next 3 lots is basically 15 feet, where we're proposing 12.8. And then a couple houses further up the block have a much bigger setback. So that kind of skews the front setback calculation. So to that extent, I think we're, relatively in line. Well, the front setbacks for the porch are basically in line with the next 3 neighbors up the street, and the house is only a couple foot difference.
It's fair to say that this construction would propose, that's to be proposed, is in line with the character of the remainder of the neighborhood as you go up Thurlow towards the bed.
Yes.
No.
And the setbacks based upon the fronting on Thurlow are consistent as you go forward in Thurlow as well, correct?
I think I'll look at that one.
Going back towards Bay Law.
Aaron, we can't hear you. So the 2 of you.
I'll take. Be fair to say that the construction of the house is in line with the remainder of the character of the neighborhood from Monmouth Avenue back towards the bay, correct?
Yes.
And Peter, that goes for both the front setback as well as the structure setback for the front.
Yes, yes. I think the most important point is one I forgot. If you actually conform with the setbacks on these 2 sides, you'd end up with a building that's 15 feet wide, which not only is kind of a little ridiculous at a certain level, but it certainly wouldn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood, if you will, because those houses are all 22 to 25 feet wide.
It's fair to say that if the house is built as allowed, you have basically a little bit of a box lot, a 15-foot wide house in the back corner of the property, correct?
Yes.
Anything further from the board? Anyone here from the public like to comment? Public portion is closed. If there's no further comment from the board. Was there any conditions, Roger?
I have none.
I'd like to hear a motion for the application as submitted.
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. Did we get that number as to the new wall?
Oh. He'd have to measure the house next door, so we can't get that number now. You made the motion?
It's going to be it has to be under the old code anyway. We're bound by that.
Right. And you're second? Somebody? Oh, I didn't see. I'm sorry. Come on. I'm reopening the public portion.
Yeah, name is Vince Mina.
You have to be sworn in, sir.
Vincent Mina, M-I-N-A. 206 Thurlow.
Just speak into the microphone,
The
please.
question I have is, you're building the house on Thurlow Avenue. The front of the house will be on Thurlow.
Correct.
Okay, but your setback is not as deep as our normal setbacks. We go back like 80 feet. on Thurlow Avenue.
Not setback, lot depth, he's saying.
The size of my lot.
Lot depth.
It's 40 by 80.
Right.
So how far back do you go?
That lot's 40 by 75.
Would you be able to put a second house on that lot?
Absolutely not.
On Monmouth Avenue then?
There's another house that's going to go on the Monmouth, between this corner on Thurlow and the other corner on Sumner. That's a separate lot altogether. So there won't be two homes on the back of that lot.
There's two lots there now. This is the corner lot. Later, another separate issue, there's a lot that will be left behind this house that a house will go on. There will be two houses on that giant lot, but it's been subdivided. We're just discussing the lot on the corner.
Basically, the home would basically be facing my house across, I'm a 206.
Right, that house would be facing your house on Thurlow.
Thurlow.
Correct, sir.
So your garage then will be closer to the first house on Thurlow Avenue across from me. Okay. So driveways and backups from my driveway and their driveway will be no interference at all by the street? If I'm backing out of my driveway, I got a two-car lot. The lot is open enough so I can park two cars on my driveway. I have no garage. So if I'm backing out cars, and will I have any interference basically with our lot?
Well,
as
this
such
lot
coming
will
up?
be independent of any other lot, whether you're going to be able to back out of the car, though. It's not coming out of the street.
Yeah, that's the question. And what will be the address for that home then?
We just confirmed 201 North Thurlow.
Two houses were going to go on Thurlow.
No, just one house on Thurlow.
It's going to be a single-family home on
That's
that
going to be a
lot.
single on Thurlow, facing Thurlow.
And there can never be another home in the back end on Monmouth side.
Not with this board, I'm sure they would not agree to that.
That's my question. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Public portion is again closed. Would you read motion? You seconded?
I'll second the motion.
All right.
He made the motion, she seconded it.
Tom Collins?
Peter, I actually like what you did with this lot in the house. I think you did a real nice design. No, you did, and you kept it within the confines. You made it less than it could be, which is always good to give us more air and open space. I think that the way you've designed this is a very positive for the neighborhood. It's going to uplift the neighborhood, and I don't see any negative impact, so I vote in favor.
Glenn Wosleski?
Well, I like the fact that the percent of coverage is below what's allowed. That's certainly a rarity and a welcome one. And the narrowness of the lot, which is the problem here, is a valid reason under the municipal land use law for the granting of the variance, so I vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
I think Peter made a good case that the houses that are going towards the bay basically have similar setbacks with the porch and not too far off from the front of the house. And given that it is an odd-sized lot, and I'm going to approve it.
Based upon the fact that we're dealing with a 74-foot lot depth, and if you were to build it within the confines of the setback, you couldn't build a 15-foot wide house. And it is consistent with the first three houses on the street, I vote yes.
As with the rest of the board members, I vote yes.
I agree with Margaret Maltby's assessment of it. You'd have a 15-foot wide house if you adhere to the setbacks. I approve it.
I vote yes for a nice design and the fitting in of the neighborhood.
For all the reasons already stated, also vote in favor of the variance.
Also, for all the reasons previously stated, I vote yes. Congratulations.
Motion passes 9-0.
Next case is East Shore Development Company, LLC, 111 South Nassau Avenue, Block 14, Lot 6, in the S30 District, to grant C variance for front porch setback, rear setbacks, and possibly others. Taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is an older 2.5-story single-family frame house sitting closer to the street than any other house on the block at 8.4 feet front setback and having a de minimis rear setback of 2.5 feet and being only 4 feet from the left property line with an oversized right side setback of 19.7 feet. This anomaly to the block and to current zoning is to be demolished and replaced by the house shown on the submitted plan by GV Designs LLC. The lot is 50 feet across the front, slightly irregular, with a depth averaging 67.2 feet, an area of 3,360 square feet. The lot has a higher grade in the rear than the front. It is associated with but separate from the lot behind, the one fronting on Mansfield Avenue, which presently has on it a garage and swimming pool. These will soon be eliminated for another house to be built on Mansfield. The proposed house has a building footprint of 1,205 square feet and a total area in 2.5 stories of 3,360 square feet. It has 5 bedrooms and 4 off-street parking spaces, also numerous porches, balconies, and patios. The variances required are front setback for the porch, 10.3 feet is required versus designed at 8.4 feet to the first floor porch. Rear setback to the house, 13.44 feet required versus 10 feet 5 inches at the closest point. Third floor deck, a 9.5 foot by 5.5 foot deck, is proposed within the roof line at the third floor on the left side off of a bedroom. There's also, based on a conversation late this afternoon with John Barnhart, an additional rear setback variance for a deck in the rear, which he will explain. Comments. As always, board member site visits determine potential impacts of the variances. 2, it is difficult to determine if the second floor front decks comply with setbacks. They seem to be back about 2 feet from the first floor porch, which might make them conforming, but testimony and clarification is requested. In that same conversation, I think Mr. Barnhart indicated there is a slight variance for the second floor front deck. We should also get clarification that all roofs are at 512 pitch via revised plans that imprint that information. There is also a very slight rounding error as regards front setback building. Required is 16.22 feet back, but it is shown as 16 feet 2 inches, which is 18.17 feet. Wait, that's got to be a typo. 16, it must be, yes, 16.17 feet. What'd you say, Chris?
He said 80.
And he's right. Revised plans should correct. 3, as to the front porch setback, per the angles of visibility, does this variance obstruct views to the neighbor to the left or any other houses from their porches, windows, or grounds? Note that the porch of 109 South Nassau has a front porch setback of 6.6 feet, and 107 has no porch. 4, the rear setback certainly approves over the house being demolished, but that is not as relevant as the question. How does the 3-foot variance compare with houses on both sides in terms of breeze or light and air issues? 5, as to the third floor deck, there are 2 questions. The usual one of impacts and the question of neighborhood conformity, which would go to how many other 3-story houses are there in the block and how many of them have third floor decks. 6, the applicant is encouraged to testify on a few other relevant points. Describe and discuss the proposed left side retaining wall. Are there encroaching walls in the rear of the lot? And how and when will they be removed? Also, please confirm the third level 50% calculation. Stairways are counted if head height would be 5 feet or greater. were there a floor at that location. 7, the board should consider architectural upgrades and a more modern flood-resistant building, as well as improvements in front and rear setbacks, even though they are variances. 8, there have been complaints from neighbors about the condition of the job sites and other houses built by this applicant. The board may wish to consider a condition, if approved, giving the construction official full authority to control or even stop construction pending satisfaction of such matters of dumpster and site cleanliness, location of porta potties, equipment and construction vehicles, encroachment onto neighbors' properties, obstruction of safe passage along the sidewalk, etc. Other than the above items 2, 6, and 8, no further conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin, members of the board. My name is Chris Balance, and I represent East Shore Development with respect to the property they own at 111 South Nassau Avenue, identified as Lot 6 in Block 14. It's in the S30 zoning district. It is Nassau Avenue beach block on the Atlantic City side of the street. What is proposed is replacement of the existing home at that property with a new single-family home to be constructed by East Shore Development. There are 3 variances and maybe a 4th associated with the application. The first variance we will talk about, Roger pointed out. No problem. There is a variance for the second floor deck on the left side of the house of approximately 2 feet. That is the only variance with respect to the front of the house. Because of the averaging on this side of the street, the required principal front yard setback is 16 and change feet, substantial. The front yard setback to a porch requirement on this side of the street is 10 feet. Therefore, we are asking for the 1 variance for a deck just to capture a little bit of an ocean view, more of an ocean view, because this house is going way back from where it is now. The other setback relief that is being requested is with respect to the rear yard. It's approximately a 2.5-foot variance. What is required is 13.44. We are seeking 10 feet 5 inches versus the 13.44, about 3 feet. The existing rear yard setback now is, I think, 2.5 feet. So the house will change substantially. The last variance being sought with respect to the small road, and that is setback at the principal structure setback of some 16 feet from the property line. Those are the variances that we seek. What we will show you and what we believe will justify those variances is the substantial changes that are taking place at the site based upon what is currently there. In addition, when you factor in what the required setbacks are for this house, you lose 30 feet of depth to the lot when you factor in the 16-foot front yard setback and the 14 and change required, or 13 and change required rear yard setback. This is not an 80-foot deep lot at these locations. It's about 67 feet deep, and with the front yard and rear yard setback, you lose about 30 feet. Let me introduce John now so he can testify. We have the architect here. We have the owner here. I don't intend to call them as witnesses unless the board should have questions specifically of them.
John Barnhart. I do.
Mr. Patterson, the board accepts Mr. Barnhart's qualifications as a professional planner. And
What's his name? Yes.
Yes, I am.
Your office prepared exhibits for this evening,
Yes, we did.
and you visited the site tonight.
Yes.
If you would you explain to the board
Certainly. So the property before you this evening is a beach block property on South Nassau Avenue. It is a lot that has a frontage of 50 feet, and it has a varying depth because the rear property line that basically parallels Nassau Avenue is on a very slight angle. So it has a depth which varies between 68 and 66 feet. The lot has a 3,360 square foot total area in the S30 zoning district, and the lot itself does meet all of the district requirements. Sitting on the lot, on the exhibit to my far right here, that's a street view shot of the home in its former condition prior to removal of existing vegetation along the front of the property. But you can see it's an older home, had overgrown vegetation, hadn't been real well maintained in recent periods. That front area has actually been cleaned up at this point, and it's dramatically opened up views for the neighbors that are opposite the beach side from this property. But I just wanted to give you an understanding of what the existing condition is, because I think it's important in the context of the application, because we are requesting some variances, and we have a true case of what we consider to be a real betterment type of application before you this evening. So the existing site, you can see in the gray shaded area on the exhibit closest to me, is the home, the existing home on the lot. You can see that there is an existing non-conforming front yard of 8.4 feet, where the average at this location is 16.33. I'm sorry, 16.22. You can see the side yard setback is only 4 feet, essentially for the entire depth of the lot, which is a nonconformity. And then you can see the rear yard setback varies between 2.5 and 3.2 feet for over approximately 50% of the overall width of the lot. So you have a home that is it's close to the street, it's very close to the side yard, it's very, very close to the rear property line, and it's existed that way for a great number of years. Our client, together with his architectural team, has come up with a plan that we think, while there are 3 variances requested, we think it's a plan that is obviously a much more beautiful layout from an aesthetic standpoint, but we also think it's a plan that has taken the existing conditions into context as well as the neighbors into context to make a project that really does help the neighbors. It does create a benefit to the neighboring properties, which is, especially in the beach block, is something that's rather difficult to do.
John, let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
This lot backs another freestanding.
That's correct. There's a lot to the rear, another conforming lot in the S30 district, which is owned by a different party, and
They have been sold off now separately,
that is correct.
which means that the parking for this house has been sold off with the rear lot.
Yes, this existing home does not have off-street parking at this point.
This home were to remain without parking.
That's correct.
But I interrupted you.
Sure. So the application before you this evening is to develop a new single-family home, and I think that these renderings that were created by the architect really tell the story of each one of the requests before you, and let you clearly understand exactly what the requests are. As Roger's report points out, I'll start with the front yard setback issues. The building itself, the main building wall, as you can see on the former building, on the ground level, that main building wall sat at 8.4 feet. The requirement for your principal building wall, based on the average setback, is 16.2 feet. The proposal with this application is to set back that main building wall. You can see it to its closest point to a depth of 16.2 feet. So the entire building, mass of the building, will comply with the ordinance. And in fact, as you can see, the different undulations of the front of the building and the step back as you get to the 3rd level, all of those would be set back yet even further from that 16.2 foot requirement. The deviation, or the request deviation this evening with regard to the front yard, is solely dealing with these porches. The porches if you're standing on Nassau Avenue looking at the building, it's the stacked porches to the left that you can see in that rendering. Pointing to them here, and then also you can see them in this view very well. They are proposed to be at 8.4 feet. The requirement for those porches is 10.33 feet as per the average porch setback. So essentially we're asking for, Roger, did I give a bad number there, or you?
John, I believe it's just the one porch above the car.
No. So we are essentially asking for a 2-foot deviation for these open porches, for these 2 open porches that are stacked, as you see in that rendering. Yes.
Yes, the second floor conforms is only for the porch above the car.
Wait, time out.
Doesn't show as...
Chris, wait a minute. Can we have 1 second? Thank you. Okay. To clarify, Roger and I discussed today the issue of these porches. It was slightly unclear as to the setback of the second level. I confirmed with the architect this evening that, in fact, his intention is to stack those porches, so they would be at the same front yard setback of 8.4 feet. So the request this evening for those two front decks is that they would both be at the 8.4 foot dimension. Understood. So why do we think that that's a justifiable variance? Well, obviously, as we pointed out with the existing condition, you have building mass for the entire width of the existing building at an 8.4 foot front yard setback. We're proposing to take that building mass, push it back to the required 16 feet, and open that whole front yard up. Remove all that existing high vegetation has already been eliminated. Standard beach block type landscape along the front of this property, and really give a sense of openness to our neighbors that are further from the beach than us. So the only deviation with regard to the porches, as I mentioned, is approximately 24 inches, and they are wide open porches with railings at 2 levels. So we believe that the 24-inch deviation is de minimis, given the fact that we are opening up that front yard setback dramatically from the existing condition.
John, isn't the deck towards Atlantic Avenue 2 feet closer to the street than your deck on the house next door?
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually going to go. I'm going to go into some of the other existing setbacks. Okay. Yes, but to answer your question, yes. So that's the front yard request, is those 2 decks at 8.4 feet versus the 10.33 feet that is required. The second variance dealing with the front of the home is a 3rd level deck area. In fact, if you look at these renderings quickly, you actually don't even notice that 3rd level deck area, because you can see he's tucked it within a roof line. It will look like roof. There's no railing up there. It's obviously to catch another glimpse of a view. It is small in nature. Yes?
Well, Roger said the same thing. Is the deck within the house under the roof, or it sticks out from the roof? It looks to me like it sticks out from the roof. The upstairs, the 3rd floor deck.
Right here, there's a piece of roof, and then you would be standing right there.
Right. The roof doesn't come over that up top, right?
I mean, there's a little bit, probably about a 12-inch overhang.
It doesn't extend over the deck.
That roof does not go out over the deck. No.
Thank you.
Was that your question?
I thought Roger said it did, and it didn't look like it from the drawing. He said it was enclosed within the roof line.
I meant the roof below.
You were talking about...
So the roof below covers the deck. I understand now.
Okay. All right. So Roger's report asked the question of 3rd floor decks on this block. That's all right. Roger's report asked the question of other 3rd floor decks on this block. It depends on... There's a couple of houses on this block that are 2 levels of living space over parking. You could kind of consider them 3rd floor, but they're really not. So honestly, there aren't other 3rd floor decks on this specific block. We all know 3rd floor decks, they time and time again, they are requested, based on impacts that, they're granted. Many times we've been involved with a lot of the applications. We believe that the positioning of this one and the size of this one, it adds another beautiful architectural element to the building, and really doesn't create a negative to the neighbors. Obviously, they're just from that 3rd level, trying to catch another glimpse of a view toward the ocean.
John, with respect to that 3rd floor deck, at this point, it's set back from the front.
Yes, well, you're 16 feet, roughly 16 feet to that wall, and then, to go to the wall of where the 3rd floor deck is probably another 4 or 5 feet. So you're pushing 20 feet, actually. Yeah. The last variance that we need to speak about is the rear yard setback. And Roger mentioned in his opening of a variance with regard to a second-level deck at the rear. We revisited that issue after Roger and I spoke about that variance, and we've determined that it's not appropriate to ask for that variance for that deck at the second level. So we are actually not asking for that variance this evening, and that deck that you can see the corner of there at the second level will not be part of this application. It was only proposed at about 6 feet from the rear line. We just didn't think it was appropriate, and our client decided that he would does not plan to construct it. So in the rear yard, and really the best way to look at this is on the site plan. In the rear yard, as I mentioned, you have a slightly angled property line. The building is required, is proposed at its closest point at 10.5 feet. As that property line angles to the far side, there's a little projection or a little bump out, I'll say, for 2 levels of the building. So the setback goes from 10.5 feet up to 10.7 feet. The projection area goes for basically 2 levels, and then, but if you measure if you exclude the projection for a second, just to explain to you what the depth is at the location next to the projection, the setback gets to almost 12 feet. It's 11.76 feet. So we're asking for a deviation which continues to get better as you go away from the ocean front.
And where the bump out is with respect to that.
Property adjacent to us, yes. That's correct, yes. And what we did also look at is the neighbor to our, and I'll go back to this aerial for a second, the neighbor to our left to this home. You can see this home, the home to the left of us, actually goes back to a point of about 2.5 to 3 feet from their rear property line. So we're coming off our rear property line. We're currently at 2.5 feet. We're going to 10.5 feet, so we're really opening up that rear yard from the existing condition. We have a house, the house on the ocean side does have an open rear yard, which appears to comply, but the house opposite the ocean side of us is very tight to its rear line. So we think that our deviation is not inconsistent with what goes on in these rear yards, and it is a dramatic improvement or betterment from the existing condition. So for those reasons, we think that variance is also clearly justified.
And John, the rest of the house either complies or falls well within the other.
That's correct. We're actually, believe it or not, this isn't something that happens very often. We're actually reducing building coverage from the existing condition. The house is, it's a beach block house. The house is, people generally try to get every square foot that they possibly can. We're meeting the building coverage requirement. The house is right around 3,000 square feet. It's for beach block, it's a modestly sized house.
Roger, your report does indicate about 3,300 square feet. It's actually.
The last thing I need to discuss is with regard to retaining walls and such. Roger brought it up in his report, so I just want to kind of review it quickly because this is I'm sure everybody visited this property. This is a very interesting block, Nassau Avenue. It's, for Margate, it's almost mountainous, so to speak, the way that the grade works on the street. So just so everybody understands, if you visited the property, the grade of the property will essentially stay as it does. It tears up very quickly from the road and then flattens off to the back. And all of the homes along there, all of their rear yards are essentially at the same level. They all tear way up and then they flatten off and are equal at the back. The one difference with this project upon its completion is that there will be an area of that high slope and then flattened out grade for the parking, the little garage area, and then parking here that will essentially be cut out. So there will be a retaining wall, and actually you can see it in this picture. It's an existing wall that may need reinforcement or reconstruction once the demolition takes place. But there is a retaining wall that will be along that side property line until the point that you go up a set of steps and get back to what is the existing grade in the rear yard. The reason I'm bringing all of that up is because once that is complete, if you were to walk down that driveway, that retaining wall, because of the dramatic grade differential, will be approximately 7 feet high. So I wanted to bring that up, Roger, because I didn't know if that was theoretically a variance because of its... Okay, it's not? Okay. All right, so...
That wall goes
Yeah. On the side closest to the ocean front, that wall, the existing wall is intended to remain. The grade is intended to remain as is on that side. So
Actually, John, there's actually a garage where there's actually a basement right now.
this is a case where it's, you know, it's a balancing act. We have 3 deviations, we have 3 variances we're asking for, but we're making a whole lot of things much better for our neighborhood and our neighbors than the existing condition. We are providing on-street parking where this existing building no longer has on-street parking, which is obviously huge in the beach block. We are increasing the front yard setback of the actual principal building. We're essentially doubling it. We're going it from 8.4 to 16.3. We're taking a rear yard setback, which is currently 2.5 feet, and we're making it 10.5 feet. So it's nearly 4 to 5 times the rear yard improvement. So all of those things on balance, we think, far outweigh any potential detriments that the deviations that we are asking for would create.
John, when we speak to the Municipal Land Use Act, that
I mean, obviously, and I said I would actually touch on them, and I will quickly. Obviously, the existing condition, or I'll say the former condition, because that vegetation has been removed. The existing condition was a real hindrance to light, air, and open space, and views, obviously, down Nassau Avenue. Our client has already removed all that vegetation, and his proposal to move the building back to comply, even though we are still asking for that small deviation with regard to the decks, really creates a sense of openness on the street that this side of the street has not had for a very, very long time.
take that massing off the street. I mean, this house sits furthest out towards.
That's correct, and that's what I wanted to mention. Mr. Patterson asked the question, just to give you an idea of what some of the other setbacks are on the street. The house immediately next to us actually does have a porch which is 6.8 feet from the front property line. If you look at that house, you can see the house next to us. It actually appears as though it's one of the furthest houses set back from the street. The principal house, the principal portion of that house, well, that house is 15.6 feet back. So what I'm telling you is that our house is even further back. The principal portion of the house is even further back than our neighbor, which is one of the furthest houses back on the block. As you head away from the beach, you've got porches that are at 9.8 feet. 12.8 feet. When you go toward the ocean front, you've got a porch that's 8.6 feet and 9.9 feet. We're right along the average. You know, we deviate by 24 inches. I go to the idea that it's a very de minimis request given the openness that we're providing.
Obviously, the aesthetic difference is the purpose of the act.
Yes, as far as purposes of zoning are concerned, you know, we are providing a much more desirable visual environment through very creative design techniques. The architectural team here, I think, has done a tremendous job. It is a very pretty building. We think it's got a lot of uniqueness to it. Yes, the property will. The property will meet all the Flood Hazard Control Act requirements and all current building codes, obviously.
Do you see any negative or any detriment associated with this application?
I really don't. This is an interesting one to me because it's hard in the beach block to be able to develop a new property that suits the needs of the owner and still actually makes things better on, you know, all 4 sides of the property.
And you reviewed with the architect the square footage on the 3rd floor.
Yes, he's explained the calculations, and he has confirmed that we are under the 50% rule.
And the other plan amendments that Mr. Rubin points out in his report are acceptable.
Everything in Mr. Rubin's report is acceptable as far as we're concerned, yes.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
That's all. I have the architect here. I have the owner here. If the board should have any questions.
Chris, I'd like to ask the architect a question. You want to swear him in?
We have designer, medallion, and we have...
Either one. Just name one.
Jack Holtz, Holz.
Sorry for all that. It takes a lot to get a question answered, but I'm looking at the plans that you designed, okay? And then I'm looking at the renderings you drew. And on the renderings, on the bottom right and right above it on the one side, you appear to be showing two large white garage doors.
On the side yard, Tom, on the red?
Yeah, if you look at them. And yet there's nothing on the plan. But they're not showing anything on this plan here.
No, this is just
This is just sliding doors, just regular 6 foot wide by 7 foot tall sliding doors, nothing else.
Sliding doors to what?
To this little concrete patio, so you can walk out and walk around the house. They are on the plans.
What do they access?
Yeah, it's not on the plan.
You can see this is 2 sliding doors. It's not garage doors. And you have to have patio, so you can walk out and walk around there.
Yeah, what do they access on the inside of the house?
This is living room, dining room.
They go right into the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Directly to the house, to the living room, dining room.
It looks like it's on the ground level.
Because when we here, we much lower than this elevation. Already first floor, much elevation 12. We're above garage. I can make sketch if you.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I'm having a problem picking up on the plans the size of the width of the first and second floor decks coming out. What is the width of the decks? I mean, on the second floor, it's...
The first floor is the first. Please, microphone, please, we'll pick that up.
On the first floor, this deck, approximately 12 foot 6 inches.
No, coming out from the house.
7 foot 10 inches.
7
foot 10 inches.
And the second floor deck is going to come out at the same width?
No, it's much smaller. I don't have here dimensions, unfortunately.
Before you said they were going to be the same size.
They are going to be the same size. But the house comes out a little bit more.
Oh, the house comes out a little bit more. Okay. So 4 foot, you have a dimension here of 4 foot.
4 foot 8.
4 foot 8. Okay. So if you were going to take the 2 feet off those front decks to conform,
We have a 5 foot deck and a 2 foot.
a 5 foot deck and a 2 foot deck. Right. Okay, and so basically you would have to shrink the house in 2 feet. I mean, a 2 foot deck is, whatever. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Clem? Microphone, please. Clem? Microphone?
Jack, why isn't your name on the drawings?
It is.
Where?
On the check by?
That doesn't indicate that you're an architect. There's no signature, there's no seal.
have to be sealed for this,
Certainly.
for this meeting, does it?
At least have to be identified.
My apology, I will respond. I'm owner of the company, but each project we did last year, we did approximately 10, 12 houses in Margate. And Roger Rubin review every drawings. Each time seal of jug holes on these drawings. And on the right corner, check out by jug holes, always, because he's licensed architect.
But that should be on the drawings.
These drawings were submitted
His
just...
signature, his license number, should all be on the drawings. You have a business card?
I have my license.
Are you suggesting that he's not an architect?
No. I'm suggesting that he may or may not be employed by this outfit.
Is that an inquiry that we need to deal with here, or is that an inquiry maybe you could take up with the board at the state level?
Just a question.
I have nothing further for these president.
Is there anyone here from the public who would like to comment? Huh? Haven't been
Via Jean Heifetz. I'm at 109 on the left as you look at the L-E-A-H-H-A-I-F-E-T-Z. 109 South Nassau. First of all, I want to say that after 24 years, I finally see that there's an ocean. They're pushing back the house, and it's going to be beautiful. My concern is that I have that little terrace on the left, and my wall abuts the property. And I just want to make sure that I still have a wall there.
The wall stays.
The wall will be there, and there'll be a driveway, and it'll open it up because there'll be a driveway right next to me.
It's right now. The exhibit that we referenced, that's your wall, that's the driveway, a little patio you sit on up here, wide open.
I'll clarify that.
That overhang that's on your side of the property that comes over the property line almost, that's being eliminated as well. So you push back.
The overhang on that house?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Paul Mulligan, Mulligan, 113 South Nassau. Thank you. The rest of my staff couldn't make it today. They're on the beach and they got a sunburn, so it'll just be myself. I'm on the beach side of this proposed house, and I'm the third house in from the beach. Years ago, a house was put up, and I believe it exceeded what the codes were, but I'm not going to go into that. My house sits back 19 feet from the sidewalk or wherever you make it. There's not a room in my house where I can see the ocean. And I'm the third house in. Where I do see the ocean is on my front porch. And I basically spend all my time on this front porch. Without it, I might as well live in Nebraska. Now, I guess I don't really have, well, let me put it this way. The existing house on my right that's under question right now, the house extends out as far as it does, which I guess isn't going to vary too much from the porch. I've heard a lot of numbers changing around here, so I'm not really all that sure I'm getting them straight. But the house, the existing room extends out pretty much the same as what they're proposing for their porches. Here's my question, my concern, and I guess I want to say my objection. That existing room is 19 feet from my house. The new double-deck porches is going to be 8 feet from my house. So I'm going to have, obviously, one house which is walled off to me. I'm going to have this new proposal, which will be 8 feet from me, two decks up.
Excuse me, it's 11 feet.
11?
Yes.
Well, the setback from the property line is
8 feet, and you have 3 feet.
And then my 3,
Right.
I'm sorry, 11.
Yes.
Okay.
Has to be at least 10 feet.
Right, I understand that. That I understand. What I'm concerned about is the only living space that I have as far as the benefit of being on the beach block is what I'm going to be considering an invasion or a compromise of my privacy, where I have one deck on the first floor that's being proposed, and I can understand that. I now have a second deck, equal distance out, looking down on me on my deck. I don't know why they have to extend it out or basically be given a variance all the way back.
Excuse me, on your side of the house, they're not getting a variance. It's on the other side of the house they're getting a
But the
variance.
whole setback.
Only on the other side of the house. The house meets the setback. It's only the porches on the other side that don't
Are you
meet the
talking about the
setback.
second floor porch or the third floor porch?
No, I'm talking about the first and second floor porch on the far side of the house from you.
Not what I understand in the plan. They're both equal
Okay.
distance out. At least what I saw on the plan. They're both equal distance out.
No, they're not.
Or someone could... Could I see that? You have porches. You have 4 porches in the front. We're talking about on the first and second floor. A porch, and then there's a deck. Then there's a deck off the bedroom, and that sticks out just as far as the other. Correct? That's what I'm saying. So I have a deck above me and a porch, and they both stick out the same. One's going to look right down on me. And I just consider that to be objectionable as far as being able to sit out there and look up at people there looking down on me. If it could be set back more, or just, quite honestly, just apply the code. You guys work very diligently to work these codes out, and I think you've done a great job for the city of Margate. Now, all of a sudden, we're just making modification after modification. If that's what's code, I'll live with it.
No, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2 different pictures here. One shows a setback, this shows them that they are the same distance. So
Yeah, they are.
Well, I don't know if they are. I'd like to have the architect clarify it. Okay.
Yeah.
On both sides? Right.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the deck on the right would be a variance also?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
4-foot deck or 2 feet off.
Now, I have a question. Is this a 6-bedroom house or a 5-bedroom?
It's 5 feet.
5.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I know in Margate, when you have 5 bedrooms, you fill them up. You fill them up. And I'm just looking at all these people on decks, either upstairs or downstairs. I'm just concerned about being able to sit out and enjoy my deck without feeling like I'm in Fenway Park.
Can I ask a question? Million?
Mulligan.
How long have you owned that property?
It's been in my family for 40 years, 50 years.
Talk about doing things by the book and conforming.
Correct.
Did you ever do any work at that house on the Gormley side? Is that correct?
Ever do anything on that house?
Maybe an addition or an extra room?
No, there was always a deck there.
Mr. Balanson, how's
No,
it?
there was a deck.
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish, please.
Stop.
Let me finish, please. What relevance does that have to the application?
Just to address Mr. Mulligan's concerns about
Well, his concerns were that the porches on your application were out too far and are going to be overlooking him. What does that have to do with his property?
the privacy of a neighbor to the side, and whether it's fair to challenge this applicant in that regard. When Mr. Mulligan's house on the right side actually sits on the property line and it's not off record with the city. I mean, I can say without asking him that. But if you look at
Do you know, when was that house built? Do you have, I have no idea.
This,
That's all. I've made my point. That's all.
All right, let's just move on. Can we move on? Thank you.
Yeah, that's,
I just wanted to keep talking about it.
no, I don't want to keep talking about it. You
I don't
wanna
want to talk about
You
it.
want to talk about something that was done in 1929? But anyway, I'm just concerned that it's just going to be awfully close, and it's the invasion from, I'm thinking, up above, being able to sit there and not have that, being able to look down. That's my real objection, and my request to you is, we have the codes. I know the side setbacks by code. The back, I don't care what you do with the back. The front, I think it should be fair for everyone. And that's what I want to, that's all I want to say.
thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Roger.
Something's not right here that we have to clarify. I think we need Mr. Barnhart to help us out on this, or the architect. On sheet A-1.2, it shows the two second-floor decks exactly in line with each other. Am I right or am I not right?
This is two decks on one line.
Okay, you couldn't hear it, but he said these are two decks in one line. Now, on sheets, sorry, excuse me, apologies. On sheet A-2.1, it shows on the west elevation, the second floor deck behind the first floor deck. Am I right? John Barnhart, do you have the exact measurement back to the original second floor deck as shown on the plan before you said they want to modify it to match the first floor?
We had measured it at being a 1.1 foot differential.
1.1, so instead of 8.4, it's 9.5, but not 10.3. Okay? So that means by deduction, the right side deck is also 9.5. Are you modifying the plan to move both decks out?
No, we are keeping the plan as submitted to you.
On the right side or on both sides?
Both sides.
Oh, on both sides. Okay.
Did that just change? Well, that's not what you said before.
Well, he changed it back. He just changed it back.
I just asked him,
Yeah,
so
right.
you're changing it back.
You can go back. No, it's okay. All right. So, Mr. Mulligan, are you still in the room?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you understand, and this may be slightly different than our discussion in my office a couple of days ago. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I now understand that the second floor deck on your side is not 8.4, it's 9.5, as opposed to 10.3. The variance is a bit less than we had discussed. John, what's the difference? About 8, 9 inches? Okay. It's the front of that deck about 8 or 9 inches.
That upper deck is 8 inches from what would be code.
Yes.
.8, who's got a calculator? .8 times 12, it's about 9
inches. Oh, 9.4, 9.5, right.
Good, about 9.5 inches, okay, that's the variance. So, I mean, the applicant could say, I'm going with that, or the applicant could say, I'll help Mr. Mulligan out, and I'll cut off 9.5.
Was that right side deck originally noted as being a variance also of 9 inches?
Not specific.
Not specifically, right. Right. Plans are a little vague, if you ask me. So what would taking 9 inches off that right side deck make the width of the deck?
John, can you help me out with that? Vidalia? Somebody answer the question, please.
Yes, so we can use the 9 inches on the same floor as the right.
Speak up. People in the audience.
I spoke to my client and he agreed to reduce this to required setback, this particular deck, to avoid this issue.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mulligan?
Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
The deck on the right is going to conform to the setback. It's going to go back 8 or 9
inches to
yeah.
conform, yes, 9
Yeah.
inches.
Whatever, it's going to be, it's going to be in the setback.
No, he's taking it from the deck.
It's 8, it's 9.5.
9.5 rather than 10.3.
Just the upper deck on the right,
Second
second floor.
Second floor deck, right-hand side.
Mike, if you go to 8, you got it? Yeah. It's going to be 4 feet instead of 4.9. Right.
Okay, anything else? We're still in public now. Are you done, sir? Okay, anyone else from the public like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any other discussion from the board? Yes.
I'll make a motion.
I didn't ask for a motion. Go ahead.
Just to be clear for the record, the variances are as follows. It'd be a motion in the affirmative for approval of variances as follows. Front yard setback on the first and second floor left side of the property, the requirement is 10.3 feet. The proposal is 8.4 feet. For the front setback, right side, second floor deck, the requirement is 10.3 feet. The proposed is 9.5 feet as amended. Rear setback, 13.44 feet, proposed 10.5 feet. And the third floor deck is not permitted, and they want it to be permitted. So it'd be a motion in the affirmative for those variances. They're all C variances.
What did you say about the third floor deck?
Isn't it third?
Let me recite the conditions.
Could you repeat that about the third floor deck?
They're requesting a third floor deck, which isn't permitted.
All right,
It's only permitted on the open water or beachfront.
The conditions would be revised, 8 sets of revised plans showing the front setback to the house clearly to be shown at 16.22 feet. It's a fractional problem, but it has to be clarified. Number 2, the reduction of the right side second floor deck so that its front complies with the 10.3-foot ordinance setback. Number 3, elimination of the rear deck. And those are the changes to the plan, and I would also like a condition providing the building inspector with the oversight that I recommended as to conditions of the site during construction. Not strong enough. I'd like to see the... Okay.
Your motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
This has been a very interesting case, and it's a very crazy neighborhood pattern with the way it's built up. trying to redevelop and get rid of the old and bring in the new, I give you a lot of credit. I think you did a very nice design. You fit it into the neighborhood. I think you have more attributes to the property than negatives to the neighborhood, so I vote in favor.
I still don't consider this a valid set of drawings because it doesn't conform to state statutes. No architect is identified. I also find it very curious that when Roger and so on call the architect up, the architect doesn't come. The other gentleman does. I have to abstain.
Mike Richmond?
I don't really have a problem with the third floor deck. I think it's not an issue. And since the neighbor on the left seems to be satisfied and we satisfy the neighbor on the right, I'm going to vote yes.
I think it's an improvement to the neighborhood. I think it's going to clean it up a little bit there. It's kind of shaky with the overhangs on the house that's there. I think it needs to go. I think they did a good job putting it together, so I vote yes.
I agree with Mike Richmond and Mike Cristaldi on their comments. The third floor deck, everybody wants a view to the ocean. We approved one last month for a third floor deck across the street. I vote yes.
Based on the conditions and the testimony of the neighbor on the right and the gentleman on the left, I vote in favor.
I'm going to vote in favor of each of the applications requested. I don't see an issue as to the setbacks in any respect, essentially because our beachside neighbor is satisfied and she's happy with the requests. Our right side neighbor is satisfied with the amendments that have been made, given that, plus the fact that I think it's being overshadowed after all the discussion that there is going to be an improvement in both the right and the front and rear setbacks. Taking all that into consideration, I don't see any hardships or detriments. I believe it would be an improvement to the neighborhood as well as the views, so I'm going to vote in favor.
I agree word for word with Despina Hess. I vote yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, please. Meeting's called back to order. Please take your seats. Next case is, where are we? 124 North Jefferson Avenue, Block 329, Lot 420 in the MF District to grant a C variance for side setbacks, combined side setbacks, lot width, possibly others. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Roger Rubin? Yes, I do. Which place are we on? The subject property is a vacant parcel wherein the flood damaged building was recently demolished. It's 25 by 125, 3,125 square feet. It is proposed, per the Peter Weiss plans submitted, to construct thereon a 2.5-story single-family home with 4 bedrooms, front porch deck at the first and second floor levels, a rear deck on the second floor, and 3 parking spaces accessed by an 18-foot curb cut. There is a permeably installed rear yard patio and landscaping to comply with code in terms of front area, total area, and plantings. The variances are lot width, 40 feet is required. Side setbacks, 5 feet is required each side versus 4 feet on each side. Combined side setbacks, 9.25 feet is required versus 8 feet as combined. Distance between principal structures, 10 feet is required. It is only 7 feet separation re the house to the left. Comments. The new home will, of course, meet FEMA flood elevation standards as well as updated architecture and materials. Second, in several respects, the proposed house betters the requirements of zoning. Landscape area is 53% as opposed to 35% required. Front landscaping is 68% as opposed to 60% required. There are 3 parking spaces while only 2 are required. Building coverage is 36% versus 39% allowed. Front setback is 25.5 feet while only 18.7 is required. And rear setback is 28 feet while 25 is permitted. So it is a smaller footprint and building mass with more open space and landscaping than required, farther from the street and rear houses than required. Site visits and observations are relevant regarding impacts, if any, of the setback variances and distance between structures. Note that the building is shorter in front, representing a slightly lower mass on the street front. Also note that this lower profile abuts the less than 10-foot separation area regarding the house to the left. Finally, note the distance to the condo to the right is an oversized 15 feet, also a partial argument regarding the combined side setbacks. No conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Members of the board, my name is Chris Balanson. I represent Bob and Colleen McGuire, who are right here this evening. With respect to the property they own at 124 North Jefferson, it is lot 420 in block 329 in the S25 zone. It is a 25-foot by 100. Thing about this property, this property was improved with 2 principal structures. Attached homes on two units. The one to the rear, and before that was able to be rebuilt. The one to the front was set on fire by the tenant and was ordered to be torn down. So, fires, rather than rebuilding the one to the plan with Pete to build a new house on it. The only kicks us into a combined side yard setback situation. Variances related to the application. Everything else falls well within zoning ordinance.
Peter Weiss? Yes, I do.
You're the licensed professional architect who stamped, signed, sealed the plans, and submitted it to the board.
Yes, I am. In New Jersey. Okay, as you can see, this is a 25-foot lot, 25-foot wide by 125 feet deep. It's pretty, I think, a pretty common lot size down that end of town, on the western side of town. It's obviously undersized on width, which brings us here because of just the lot width, but also side yard setbacks, because the minimum setback for this lot would be 5 feet on either side. Given a 25-foot lot, that would, as in a similar case earlier, give you a 15-foot building if you were to conform with zoning completely. So what we did was we took the approach that, well, since the lot is relatively deep, we can comply with all the zoning requirements except for the side yards, because it would be unreasonable, I think, to build a 15-foot wide building. The way the building's organized, it's basically a split level, kind of front to back. In the front, you have 2 levels over a garage, which runs about halfway back. And then in the rear, there's 3 stories over a crawl space. So it's actually a 2.5-story building, even though it's sort of, well, it's about the same height. It's just the way it's distributed.
The structures that were on the property previously, there were 2.
Correct.
And you've seen the survey for those, and the left side yard setback was 5, and one was 2.0.
Yes.
So the setbacks with respect to this building, single building,
yes.
Also with respect to the distance between buildings.
Yes.
Sorry, I kept going.
Okay. It's okay.
It's okay, you can be calm.
So I was just going to explain the building a little bit. The ground level, we have garage and an entrance. The first floor, your principal living space, and a guest room in the rear. And then the upper story and a half is 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms.
It's a four-bedroom house?
Yes.
Previously, each of the structures had 2 bedrooms.
Yes.
And previously, the structures that were there had no off-site parking.
Correct.
And we're bringing the property into compliance with zoning by eliminating.
Yes.
Do you see any negative associated with this application by replacing 2?
Anyone from the board have any questions? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Please come forward.
My name is Edward Spiegel, S-P-I-E-G-E-L, and I live at 126A North Jefferson Avenue.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony?
I do. Okay. First off, we was reading the perspective, and it never said anything about the fire. I came home that night, and I never saw so many fire trucks in my life. I got up to my house, the firemen had broken
I'm
into-
sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The fire that burnt down the house next door to us, the arson, spread to my house,
Okay.
took all the siding off of it, etc. The firemen had to break into our house in order to put out the fire. I understand that. They want to make sure nobody was home, no invalids. I have no complaints about the fire department. They did an excellent job. The fire chief and the mayor were both there, and they said, if it was another 2 minutes, we would have lost your house. and they had sprayed all the water. They said they were directing towards our house to try and save it, and they did. But they told us that the reason for it spreading was that the houses were too close. My only concern is that the new house that they're building, which is probably more beautiful and nicer and improves the neighborhood, is further from our property than the previous house.
Isn't it?
Okay?
Wait.
From our property line, how many feet?
Wait, let the architect answer that question.
From our property line,
The answer is the building will be at approximately 2.5 to 3 feet further away from the property line than previously.
2.5 to 3 feet.
24 feet away. Previously, the buildings were 1.65 and 2.1.
But what's 1.65? I just want to know.
You had the previous buildings that were there previously
Yes.
were 1.65 feet off the property line. Okay?
And the new building?
This building will be 4 feet off the property line.
So it's going to be 4 feet off our property line?
No, it'll be 4 feet off the common property line. That's correct.
Off our property line?
Yes.
And the whole property is how many feet wide?
25.
So that leaves 19 feet that they're going to build.
No, they have the other side, too.
4 feet on the other side also.
Okay, so it leaves, if they're taking 4 feet and 2 feet,
8 feet off of 25, it leaves them 17 feet to build a building.
okay, 17 feet is going to be the width of the building.
Yes.
Okay? As long as it's going to be that way, and the rest of our complaint was when they ripped down this, they destroyed our fence, the Euro company, and they...
This has nothing to do with this
Nothing to
board.
do with this, I know that. But as long as it's 17 feet wide, we're with you.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Anyone else? Public portion is closed. Any other discussion? Do I hear a motion to, you want to read?
I'll make a motion.
Simple. Roll call?
I vote in favor of this application. I'd like to give hats off to the McGuires. I think he really did a nice job. A lot of people come in with these small lots and try to jam so much stuff into it in 1, 5, 6, 7 variances. The only variances you're really requiring here go with the land. And you can't change the size of the land. I think what you're doing is great. I think it's going to improve the neighborhood. It's going to have a major positive impact on the neighborhood. And by not overbuilding, you're not going to have any of those negative factors. So I wish you a lot of luck. I vote in favor.
Well, it's a lot of house for a small lot, but it's well laid out considering the restrictions imposed by the lot size, and it does have slightly less coverage than is allowed. And as Tom indicated, all the variances requested are reasonable, and they're all a result of the hardship caused by the small lot. So I vote yes.
I'm going to agree with Clem. It's just a weird-sized lot, and 4-foot setback is a lot better than what was there before, so I'm going to vote yes.
I'm going to vote in favor of the application based upon the same previously stated by the other board members.
I think they did a good job with the amount of bedrooms because we've been overloaded with homes on these lots with a lot more bedrooms. So my vote is yes.
I agree with Mike. 3 bedrooms on a house of this size is what we're looking for. I vote yes.
David Carter.
I vote yes, and I wish the people, the McGuires, a lot of luck, and it's a nice layout.
I vote in favor of the application. I don't see neither detriment nor any substantial impairment. I believe it's an improvement, and it's a nice design. Vote in favor.
there's no way around the lot width in these variances that they're asking for. I commend them for being under on everything else for this house. I vote yes. Next case is Catherine C. Rose Trust, 106 South Kenyon Avenue, Block 12, Lot 12, in the S30 district to grant a C variance for side and front setbacks. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin? Yes, I do. Turned it off. The subject property is a two-story single-family house set mostly on the right side of the lot on a lot of 50 by 62 and a half. The homeowners are contemplating various improvements and upgrades to an older home, including a second-floor balcony as shown on the plans submitted by architect Robert Reynolds. The 8-foot by 12-foot balcony, which would emanate from a front bedroom, would replace interior space and a rather steep front projected A-frame roof segment over that interior space and would retain a small portion of that roof as a kind of parapet around the deck. The architect correctly calls this a deconversion, being the replacement of building mass with open space, but the open deck, because of its characteristic of bringing human activity to a place where there was previously enclosed activity, is and has been considered subject to setbacks, just as the reverse has been deemed to be the case. Variance is required. Front setback, per the 200-foot survey, the required front setback is 7.8 feet versus the setback to the frontmost portion of the deck being 6.7 feet, or a variance of 1.1 feet, which is 13 inches. And right side setback, 8 feet is required versus 3 feet from the deck to the property line. Comments. The board's observations are relevant with respect to impacts on neighbors, if any, of privacy, noise, or obstruction of light, air, or views. Second, as this is a rather small deck off of a bedroom, it is unlikely to create any significant noise or privacy issues, nor is it large enough to hold more than a few people. 3, the elimination of the high peaked roof and replacement by open space may create hitherto unavailable ocean and beach views to the house on the right, and clearly will enhance sunlight and ocean breezes to that house. 4, the overall architectural effect will also be to visually reduce the mass of the house from the street side, as this house sits forward toward the street more so than all but one of the 8 houses on the block. No conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. The best positive criteria with this application is that we get a family with kids on the beach block. It's probably the first one of 5 in town. With respect to this application for the Roaches concerning their property on Kenyon Avenue, 106 South Kenyon Avenue, it's simply an application to take away what is now internal living space, eliminate a gable end, so to speak, and create a deck there. As a result of the creation of the outside space, that requires variances because that deck, following the existing lines of the building, falls within a front yard setback and side yard setback. And therefore, Roger had asked us to come in for a variance, just like we would have to do if we were converting outside space into space. Bob Reynolds is the architect that prepared the plan. He touched very briefly upon the variances, and then we can wrap up. Roaches, now Roaches are here. Anybody have any questions?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Robert D. Reynolds, Jr.
Speak in the microphone, please.
Oh, my God.
Bob, would you just tell the board what you're doing with respect to the house that Nellie and Alan are moving with Mr. Roach?
Sure, thanks, Chris. Basically,
Take the
This is
microphone, sir. Take the microphone with you. It's being recorded.
This is the existing Kenyon Avenue elevation. There's a approximate 2-foot diameter circular window. So this is the area of roof that we're removing. These are the 2 side views. The side that faces the beach has a small skylight.
So Bob, the exhibit you're looking at now,
These
when
are
I'm saying
existing.
This is the existing condition.
Right.
You've got that gable end right above the sunroom on the Kenyon Avenue facade. And that's the side that faces the bay, correct?
Yes.
What we are doing is taking away that gable end, and at the top of the eave, making that deck area, is that right?
Correct.
So the plan that I'm showing now is just what we just talked about. It's that gable end being removed. And what's the depth of that being removed?
8 by 12.
Okay, so what we're doing is by taking that gable end for the house that's on the right, you're actually opening up about 8 feet of view corridor toward the ocean. Is that right?
That is so, Chris. This area of roof will be removed. Of course, the lower portions of the roof will remain, and we will be left with an 8 by 12 fiberglass deck, which will be accessible from the bedroom.
Well, what's nice about the design of this deck, it doesn't come all the way out to the edge of the eave. It's recessed within the existing eave line, so you have a little bit of a buffer from the railing out towards the edge of the top of the eave wall.
The building has a continuous 2-foot overhang all the way around, and that's indicated here.
And the deck is behind that, so to speak, at both the front and the side.
Correct.
And the variance spot in the front, that is, we revised it to be about 1.1 feet into the front yard setback, is that right?
Yes, we found what we believe to be
Of course, that we didn't think was important.
right.
And on the right side, what is the side yard setback? And that, on the right side, I believe is necessary.
Well, the side yard setback on the ocean side is 20.8 feet. We have 3 foot on the bay side.
We're not actually creating anything within that space.
No, absolutely not.
Building away, correct?
We are creating an environment that will have more air, more light. It'll be a benefit to the neighbor on the bay side, certainly.
I like it. Plan that the person proposes causing a negative impact or any detriment to the zone plan or zone ordinance?
His name.
Absolutely not.
The third brother. No, the third brother.
Thank you, Mr. Travis.
Seeing no questions from the board, is there anyone from the audience that would like to, public that would like to participate or have any comments or questions? The public portion is closed. Is there any other comments from the board? Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
As submitted, any conditions?
No.
I'm second.
Tom Collins?
I vote in favor of the application. This is a very, very minor variance. Actually, it's to the betterment of the neighborhood, and anytime you reduce bulk and mass and provide open air and light and free up a little bit of space in the neighborhood, it's a good thing, so I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski?
It's the first time I remember any project where we're getting less. Everything's positive about it. It's less reducing the mass of the existing house. It's opening up towards the ocean for the neighbor. It's all positive. I vote yes.
Michael Richmond?
I think that what they're requesting is very minor, and like everybody else said, they're actually taking away rather than adding, so I'm going to vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I vote in favor of the application. There is no negative impact. It's a nice design, and it's an improvement and no obstruction to the neighbors.
Mike Cristaldi?
I'm in agreement with the rest of the board members. I think it's an improvement. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
I vote yes also. It's positives for the neighbors, positive for the homeowner. I vote yes.
David Carter?
I vote yes. It's a very positive situation.
Despina Hess?
For all the reasons previously stated, I also vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
I'm just sorry that due to these technicalities, you had to come before the board. I vote yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Next case is Martin and Susan McGinn, 9715 Winchester Avenue, Block 331, Lot 10, in the MF District, to grant a C variance for lot width, side yard setback, and possibly others. Taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Roger Rubin? Yes. Where am I? Before I start reading, Mr. Cajun brought revised plans to my office sometime this afternoon, and I had a chance to look them over. and some of the numbers were modified in a more positive vein, and I will read those modifications as I read my review. And I think, Robert, you'll give out the revised plans? Okay. The subject property is vacant land wherein a flood-damaged home has recently been demolished to be replaced, if approved, by the single-family home in the Robert Cajun plan submitted herewith. The lot is 25 feet wide by 125 feet deep. The proposed house will be 2 stories above parking and storage, with 4 bedrooms and 3 baths on the first habitable floor, and on the top floor, the 5th bedroom, living, dining, kitchen space, and 1.5 baths. 3 parking spaces are shown, 2 in front and 1 in the garage. There is a large rear second-floor balcony deck, and the first floor overhangs a large covered patio at grade in the back. Variances required are lot width, 40 feet minimum required versus 25 feet as is. Side setbacks, 5 feet is required on each side. The revised plan shows 5 and 4. Combined side setbacks, 9.25 feet required. Revised plans show 9.0. Distance to principal buildings on adjacent lots, 10 feet is required. Revised plan shows 9 feet 2 inches to the house on the right and 9 feet to the house, to the rear of the house on Coolidge, second from the corner. Building coverage, 39.375% is permitted. Revised plan shows 41%.
Would you read the distance?
The distance to principal buildings on adjacent lots, 10 feet is required. It was widened from 9 feet to 9 feet 2 inches to the house on the right, and it was widened from 7 feet 6 inches to 9 feet to the rear of the house on Coolidge, which abuts this on the left side. And
Which side is the 4-foot side?
I forget, which side is the 4-foot side?
Pardon?
Which side of the house is the 4-foot side?
Left or the right facing the house?
Just real... Right, okay. Comments. The lot width variance is, of course, based on a geographic restriction that cannot be improved. The board may consider for this variance the overall building envelope insofar as conformity with surrounding structures is achieved. Second, the setback issues are important, going to questions such as, does the shortage in distance obstruct light, air views, or privacy regarding neighboring properties? And the board's site visits are important in this matter. Note that the actual required front setback via the 200-foot survey is only a bit more than 15 feet, but the actual layout is 20 feet, more closely matching the 2 houses to the right. Also a factor is the excess landscape area provided by my scaling. There is 52% grass and vegetative cover as compared to 35% required. Building coverage, the permitted square footage is 1,230, and the first floor is 1,312 square feet, and this has been modified in excess of 82 square feet. Mr. Cajun will give the revised numbers. There's still a variance. You may consider that the second floor balcony itself does not count for coverage, so the second floor is only 1,138 square feet. Likewise, the ground level, parking and storage, is also 1,138 square feet of building mass because of the patio under the first floor overhang in the rear. 25-foot wide cases, which this board has dealt with many times, including many times tonight, are difficult and challenging, requiring the balancing of many factors to determine if the benefits outweigh the detriments. Observation by site visits and testimony will be important in your deliberations. Thank you.
Robert Cajun, architect. Yes, I do. Tonight I have Meredith McGinn with me, the owner of the property. Also have an adjacent property owner that is affected that's going to speak and comment on this project. And also Meredith McGinn, she'll give her opening testimony, and then I'll fill in after that.
Meredith McGinn. Hi, thank you for hearing our application tonight. My husband and I recently bought the property from my Uncle Martin, whose name you also see on the plans. The property has been in our family for 3 generations now. I spent many years of my childhood visiting my grandparents at this property. I won't say how long ago that was. So in recent years, my uncle, who lived on the West Coast, rented the front. There were 2 houses on the property. He rented the front house a little bit. My dad occasionally used the back house. They were in severe disrepair, had sustained significant flood damage. So at this point, my mother has a house next door, 9713. So when my uncle came to us with the idea of potentially selling, my husband and I decided that to clean up the property and use this for our twin boys as a vacation home, as I did, would be wonderful. So we look forward to using this property.
The property is part of a series of 25-foot wide lots on the street. And this particular project is an appropriate infill because it follows a current pattern of homes along there that had been approved 10 years ago for Meredith's mother, and also recently several other homes were also approved on the 25-foot wide lots. This particular home, as designed, will be 16 feet wide and will have a 9-foot distance between principal structures. The one structure, which is 9715, or rather between 9715, the subject property, and 9713, which is Meredith's mom's house, there'll be 9 feet between the houses. On the opposite side, the most impact would be at 103 North Coolidge Avenue, and the distance between the houses will be 9 feet. There's currently 4 feet from the property line for 103 North Coolidge, and 5 feet from the property line being proposed for 9715. In addition, the rear yard setback is greater than what had been approved in the past for 9713, and the front yard setback, as Roger had indicated in his report, is over 5 feet greater than what is required. The house essentially will sit elevated, and there will be parking under the house. We chose to clad the house with several different material styles to give a little something different, a different streetscape over there. And in the underside of the house will be parking. We're putting some of our air conditioning equipment, which will be ceiling mounted, in this garage area, so that there'll be no equipment on the side yards or the backyard. So we're going to take advantage of being able to hide a lot of that equipment under the house. If there are any other questions of the board, I'd be happy to answer them.
Robert, how did you shrink the coverage from the original submittal?
When our neighbor was kind enough to give me a survey of her property, I actually found out the house was 6 inches further away. They had a 4-foot setback versus 3.5. So what we had done was we had shifted the house down to go from 4'6" to 4 foot, and then I created a 5-foot side yard setback because the neighbor had requested, and I said, well, I can do that. So we shrunk the house up by 6 inches. I also shrunk the interior walls by 2 inches to be able to do that. And the square footage of the house, that foot took approximately 35 square feet off the house. So the allowable, the total building area is 1,280 square feet, and allowable was 1,230 square feet. So it's a difference of 50 square feet on the building coverage.
I just have a comment. This seems like a massive house for a 25-foot lot from the looks of the house and the looks of the drawings. I commend you for bringing it down. You said it would be 50 more feet to conform to lot coverage? Is that what you said?
Yes. But again, we were able to have, on the previous application, they had 8 foot between the houses, only had a 4-foot setback.
I understand,
We
yeah.
picked up an extra foot there.
Mm-hmm.
I think basically what the board looks at, Robert, is that you've gotten down to one variance, which is building coverage. Everything else, again, runs with the land. And you're 50 square feet away from getting rid of one variance, which then put us at
a bedroom,
whatever's running to the land.
Well, in order to take the 50-foot, I'd have to take 2.5 feet off the back of the house, and we're already 25 feet away on the rear yard, and it would make it almost 28 feet rear yard setback. And that's, it's doable. It's just, we're taking 2.5 feet off the back of the house. I mean, it's something, if my client wants to consider.
A little bit off each, steel, a little bit off each room of some. Looks like it's doable.
I'm at here at I try to keep the room around 12 feet because it works nice with the furniture. Possible. I mean, can I take like 18 inches off? I can work that real easy, that we're talking about.
If you can get 18, you can get 24.
Yeah, 18 inches would be 16 square feet plus 8. That'd be 24 square feet. Makes it a little less.
Also got a 5-bedroom house on this tiny little lot. I'm just letting you know my concern. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just...
We tried to do the 5 and the 4, if...
Go ahead.
Yeah. What's his name again? Robert? I'm sorry. Robert,
Yes.
why are there the 3 dormers on the south side of the house in the attic?
Just for aesthetic, that's all. It's not habitable space or anything.
To me, it makes it look like a 4-story house when you're looking at it.
Okay. I mean, I can remove them. I just
Doesn't it?
I wanted, I can take the dormers off.
Looks better with them.
You think it looks better with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
It's only on one side.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, why is it on one side?
Well, I was going to try to take and bring borrowed light into to the bathrooms and stuff. Like
It breaks
here,
up the
here, and
prism.
here. That's what basically it's going to be like almost like a skylight, but you look up, there'll be a hole in the ceiling and there'll be a window for borrowed light. That's all.
I'm just, no, I know he is. I just have a concern, and it's, we can discuss it here. I think the house is too big, and I think you should be able to shrink it down to fit the coverage. We've been doing that the last couple applications, the last couple meetings, we've been doing the same thing. And these tiny little lots having 5-bedroom houses, and if they want to have 5 bedrooms, fit it in the footprint. They can put a 4-bedroom house and fit in the footprint easy.
How much would they have to shrink the house
2
down? 2 feet?
Yeah.
A little over 2 feet.
On both floors?
No.
Yeah, the whole house. Sure.
No, the first floor, the second floor is already small. We would just have to shrink the lot coverage on the first floor. Just the first floor.
I'm actually more concerned with the 5 bedrooms than I am size.
He's allowed to have 5 bedrooms. We
I know
can't.
you're allowed. I understand you're allowed.
Right.
I said I'm just concerned more with 5 bedrooms than I am with the mass of the house.
Quintuplets, you said?
If you wish, we could reduce, conform to the lot coverage. I just spoke to my client, she'll shrink the rooms up and bring it down to the...
That would be preferable.
Robert, if you do that, there's really no debate about anything here. You've got lot width, and that's,
Yeah.
we're
So
all
we
for it.
can,
And
we
it's-
can, see what, we can reduce that, the square...
The coverage variance, and we're keeping the other variances.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Tom's saying?
Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? It's not necessary.
Dorothea Gukas, 103 North Coolidge Avenue. Guokas. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
It would be easier to give these out with a little sketch to show you my problem and my concern about this, because with a 5-bedroom house, that height going behind my house, really, is it within the fire safety compliance?
Yes.
That close, it is?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, my next question was, because my chimney will be lower, much lower than the height of that house, and it is so close to the wall of the house, which runs the full length of the rear of my house. The chimney, the draft for the chimney, according to what I've been told by somebody who knows a lot more than I do, could be affected, and I may at some time in the future, or even immediate, have to extend the height of that chimney or make differences that are going to be my expense. So the top of the chimney is supposed to be a minimum of 2 feet above any part of the structure within 10 feet, is what I was told. It's true.
Clem?
Thank you.
Clem, could you comment on
So
that?
Yeah, in the building code, the top of the chimney has to be 2 foot higher than any portion of the roof within 10 feet.
Of her structure or any
Of
structure?
anything. And generally, it's your own building, because it's closer to your own roof than the
Is that a
neighbor's
problem,
roof.
Robert?
Robert, is her house behind this?
It's on the left side.
Her house is right here.
She's on Coolidge.
That's the person's house.
She's going to be right here.
Now, if you did the 10-foot 2 rule, and you take it, but the same thing, you have to go from horizontal across the slope of the roof, may negate that 10-2 rule with the chimney. It's a 10-2 rule, you want to be 10 feet at least 3 feet above.
Well, either way, if it's a building code issue that we're talking about, that would, the building department, he's on this board, but he would be the one that would take care of it, and if it was not up to building code, they wouldn't be able to get plans. So the house has to be built to code no matter what variances we give. We don't say you can build a house less safe or whatever. That's building code.
Rich,
Yes.
they won't have to bring in plans of the neighbors when they come in to submit for plan review. The plan review will just show what's here. So Jimmy won't have what's here.
He will on site inspection.
Pardon?
He will on site inspection.
On-site inspection, yeah.
Right.
But he's, before plan review, I think that might be,
No, what I'm saying is she can bring it up with the building department. We have no control over these things. She can talk to Jimmy.
okay, I got you.
Right.
you mean that I would bring this up with the building department, or would that be considered before it's built? How do I go about that?
I would say, I don't know that answer, so I would go, he's very approachable. It's Jim Galantino, and go speak with Jim Galantino and tell him your concern. Jim Galantino is the building inspector.
I spoke to my client. If there is an issue, they'd be willing to extend the chimney flue up. If it is...
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just trying, I want her to realize that there's someone here to protect her from building code problems. Your neighbors will take care of it, but the question you're asking is beyond the purview of this board, and I'm letting you know who to talk to. It's Jim Galantino in the building department. Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't want you using up the expense, so, yeah, tell me that.
Well, the building code department may not decide, they may decide it's okay the way that it is, but when it actually comes to functioning, if it has a problem, I would like to make sure that the expense will be covered.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that. If it meets building code, we have no say over it, and he has no say over it, so...
Actually, the chimney is only 2.5 feet off the property.
I understand what you're saying. If it's not...
Close.
If it's not up to code, you'll speak to Mr. Galantino. If it is up to code, there's nothing we can do about it. If it meets code, if it meets all these setback requirements, there's nothing we can do. Your neighbor has just said if you do have to raise it, she'd be willing to do that, but I think that was if it violated code. She may be willing to do it if it doesn't violate code. I don't know. That you could take up with your neighbor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me,
I
what's your
appreciate it.
address?
103 North Coolidge Avenue.
Okay. I'll bring this to the attention of Mr. Galantino.
Oh,
and
I
you do
appreciate
so-
that.
But you do so also, okay?
Pardon me?
You do it, and I will do it also.
I appreciate that.
All right?
I'll tell you too, I've been neighbors with the Begins for a long time, and we're getting with issue, personal
Right.
issue. This is only for my house and my safety,
Right,
and my expense too, if
Oh.
it should run into that.
right. And all I'm bringing up is there's only certain things this board can do. The things we can't do, I can lead you in the direction of who can fix it for you. Okay,
That too.
sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Thank you. Public portion is closed.
Just correct, Meredith's mother is here, and test.
Oh. Would you read it, because this is complicated?
It'd be a motion in the affirmative for C variance relief for the following: lot width required 40 feet, proposed 25 feet, right side setback required 5 feet, proposed 4 feet, combined side setback required 9.25 feet. I have proposed as amended 9 feet, is that correct? 9.2, okay.
9 feet 2 inches.
For combined. 9.25, it was 8 feet, and then it switched to 9 feet. Roger, do you remember?
Yeah, it was, it's 9 feet 2 inches on one side, and 9 feet on the other side.
9 feet 2 inches on the right side, 9 feet on the left side.
Okay, as stated by Mr. Rubin, that,
Also, combined side setback?
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
okay.
it's combined 9.
That's what I thought, okay. Combined 9 feet. Distance between principal buildings to the left side building required 10 feet, proposed 9 feet. Right side building required 10 feet, proposed 9.2 feet. They withdrew the building coverage variance request. So if I could have a motion for that.
Make a motion with the amendments as written.
Any conditions?
Well, yeah, essentially, 8 sets of revised plans showing compliant coverage, certified by the architect, no higher than 39.375%, and all the other changes submitted with the plan tonight. In other words, we needed 8 fresh sets,
Okay.
plus the coverage reduced.
Okay.
Second? Did somebody?
Tom made a motion.
Second.
Tom Collins?
Again, Ms. McGinn, I give you a lot of compliments here for making the adjustments and trying to conform to the neighborhood. I think what Robert's done is nice, and keeping within the variances just because of the land make a big difference, and it makes a big impact on the neighborhood. So I vote in favor.
Glenn Wozleski?
With the coverage issue resolved, I think anything else has to do with this minimum size lot, which can't be helped. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, I think that the homeowner and the architect were very amenable to our request. It seems like the neighbor is, what she's talking about really doesn't have to do what we're talking about tonight, so I'm going to vote yes.
Margaret Gubernati?
I also am going to vote in favor of the application. He has reduced coverage, and based upon the condition, I also think it's a really nice design in the neighborhood, and yes.
Mike Cristaldi?
As the other board members, with the good design of the building and them cutting back, I'd say yes.
Craig Palmisano?
I agree with the fellow board members on the assessments of all the concessions you've made. I vote yes.
Councilman Hess?
For all the reasons previously stated, I'm also going to vote yes in favor of the variance.
Rich Patterson?
As others have said, I commend Robert, I commend the applicant I commend Roger. Roger's the greatest, but I commend you guys on meeting the coverage. And I vote yes. I think you've done a nice job. It's a nice-looking property.
And David Carter?
I vote yes, based on the conditions and the changes in the revised plans from tonight.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you. Would you come sign this, please?
Anybody wants to recycle their old plans?
Joanna might want him, Robert.
Jim wasn't here, so we didn't need any candy.
I managed to avoid it. I was tempted.
I used to smoke a cigar in the car a lot, and then since I stopped smoking cigars, I keep those menthol, like Loons, menthol cough drops or stuff like that.
I like Halls.
Halls? I like the honey licorice.
I like the Halls plain old menthol. It's the only time I can breathe right is when I got one of those in my mouth.
Oh, yeah?
I have that in my mouth.
I have some. Wow. Feels good. Yeah.